Welcome, Ryan, Graham, Yaz, the Doctor, Jack, and the Master, to episode 425 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 19th of October, 2021, and featuring an Unearthly podcast, Series 12 in review. That's Series 12 of Doctor Who, not Season 12 of the podcast. We're on a different number. Uh, I am Bill Sylvia, the writer in black, and with me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
It's amazed me that, we started this at what, series 7 of Doctor Who?
Yep.
And
Yep.
they've had since then, 6 series, and we've had, what, 16 seasons?
Thomas Fireheart,
God, I left my rewatch too late.
and Mad Matt Winchell.
Does this mean that we're more professional than the actual professionals?
At the very least, we operate on a lower budget.
And are a lot more prolific.
uh,
But at least we're constant.
Yeah, we post on the old, 1960s Doctor Who schedule.
Pretty much.
Well, about fuck it, we're doing it live.
Anyway, how's everybody's week been?
It's been pretty good. Finally moved most of my stuff across to the flat, so that's nice. And I've started sleeping over there, even though I'm not technically fully moved in. The one hurdle that didn't even occur to me until I'd already started moving my stuff across was, fuck, I don't have a router yet. So I am in what was my old bedroom now, sitting in the bones of the bed I was sleeping on an actual chair with a back on it. That's nice. With my laptop on another chair, because the coffee table I was using to put my laptop on now has my PS4, my Switch, and my TV on it. Because I actually get internet over here, whereas I only get wired internet over at the flat.
Thomas, I still have you beat. There was a time on this podcast I was sitting on a bathroom floor podcasting with the laptop sitting on top of a closed toilet bowl.
If I recall, that was the time when we didn't stick around to chat afterward because it got like 100 degrees in there, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Whoa.
usually I was sweating like a pig because I had to close myself off from the air conditioning and everything, and so whenever we were doing it in the summer, it would be like 1,000,000 degrees in there.
But thankfully, when I finally got a damn router, which hopefully won't be too long, I'll be able to podcast from over there and sit on a comfy couch. So that'll be nice.
Poke him with the comfy cushion.
How about you, Matt? Anything this week?
I've been busy, mostly working. I also had technical issues, even though I wanted to stream on Thursday night. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night just gave up the ghost and didn't want to launch. Did everything, including uninstalling it, but then all of a sudden, Steam didn't want to reinstall it. 2 days later, there's a small patch for Steam, and suddenly the game completely works again. I don't know.
Bug. How about you, Bill?
So my brain has been melted. It's the busy part of the semester when if I don't have something I need to grade, then I have a class I need to get ready, or I have a paper due, or I have a grant due, or all of the above. And I am very looking forward to just getting through this month and surviving, and that not being the case anymore.
Oh, I should also note that work has double noted me for my due diligence and showing up when asked to show up at the last minute.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Right.
Which might mean I might even get that raise. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah,
They
we'll see
definitely
about
can't
that.
argue that I don't show up enough.
So, I guess we should move into the podcast, huh? Because I got nothing this week. I got nothing.
Ah,
Just slow week for Randy.
Yeah. So, we've got birthdays, and then we've got news. We're skipping Geek Talk. I do have one thing. It's not really a rumor, but it doesn't really fit anywhere else, so I put it in the rumor mill that I want to talk about.
okay.
And then we'll move into our series and review.
Okay.
So, first thing is birthdays. We've got two. First one's on October 14th, and it's the birthday of Katie Manning, who we would know better as Joe Grant or Joe Jones, from 1971 to 1973, and then once again did a bunch of guest appearances, including on the Sarah Jane Adventures. She just turned 75. And then 2 days ago on the 17th was the birthday of Mark Gatiss, writer and actor. Was in stuff from 2007 to 2017, mostly as Moffat's flunky. He turned 55. So happy birthday, Katie and Mark. From birthdays, we go to deaths, and it is with great sadness that AUP announces the death of Michael Ferguson, a man with a long-seated history behind the camera in Doctor Who. Ferguson was born in South London in 1937. He graduated from Lambda and worked initially at the Centre Theatre, which toured among local schools. He joined the BBC in 1963, and his first job was an AFM during the production of The Daleks. He was actually the first person ever to portray a Dalek, being the man behind the plunger in the cliffhanger finale of the first episode.
Oh.
He would be promoted to director of the series Compact shortly thereafter. Doctor Who would call on Ferguson to direct multiple times. First for 1966's The War Machines. Then again for 1969's The Seeds of Death. He would return a year later in 1970 for The Ambassadors of Death, and one final time in 1971 for The Claws of Axos. After that, he put Doctor Who behind him. He would go on to showrun and revive the soaps EastEnders and The Bill, both of which were at the bottom ebb of their popularities, and would turn them around and make them into viable shows for the BBC and ITV, respectively. He retired from television in 2003 to teach acting to a new generation. Ferguson died on the 4th of October at the age of 84. He is survived by his second wife and a daughter from his first marriage. Okay, moving on to the rest of Doctor Who news. We have a full trailer. Well, at least it's like a minute and a half trailer for Flux.
It's not Jodie Whittaker talking to a camera, and it's not a rainbow blurring over a screen, so it counts as a full trailer.
Yep. We get to see stuff. We get to see a lot of stuff.
We get to see a Wookiee.
It did kind of look like a Wookiee or a dog person, didn't it?
It is, according to the stills, very much a dog man.
It's a Mog! He's his own best friend!
Well, apparently the Mogs come in warrior form now. Because he's got a glowing neon axe in his hands.
Plasma axe, yes. Okay, so we see Cybermen, we see Santarans. What do you think of that new Santaran armor, by the way?
That looks more like the war-torn Santarans we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
Also, actually, yeah, the helmet looks a lot more like the old classic Santarans.
I think you shared a better photo of it with us in our group chat. I'm not sure where you had gotten that one from.
I got it from Reddit.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Do you know what
Oh.
their source was? Or
Doctor Who magazine.
got you. Okay.
Mm.
'Cause,
Yeah.
those images were really good. I was impressed by those.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because those look really good. That looks really retro, like back to the classic Who days of the Santarans.
Hmm.
Just about.
Except with a significantly larger budget than any Centauran episode has had in the past.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, they're
Yeah.
taller. They've got that armor, and if you look at the head design, it's not.
It's not smooth potato. It's
Right.
a really
Mm.
lumpy one.
Yes. We've gone from
Uh.
smooth potato to rotten potato.
Nobody. These Centaurans do not look like Matt Smith will be giving them a noogie.
No.
No.
They probably still have the probic vent in the back. That's a known Santaran weakness.
Yes.
If they don't,
Hmm.
then Chris Chibnall needs to be hit.
Yeah.
We also
Well,
see.
I would like to think that the Centaurans have been hit in that weakness enough that they might have developed a countermeasure.
Not guaranteed because for every thing you change, there's going to be another new weakness. Otherwise, you just basically
True.
made an impossible enemy.
Yeah.
Let's see. We also see Weeping Angel and Ood.
Mm-hmm. Nice to have the Ood back.
Hmm.
And yes, a dog man with an axe.
Yep.
And a weird alien couple.
Very skeletal looking, in fact.
Yes.
Hmm.
Not sure
Yes,
what to make of
the first time I saw that photo was on Facebook, captioned when the older couple who's been buying you drinks all night starts to give you that look at the end of the night.
Awkward.
But yeah, in a way, I feel like it kind of makes sense that the Sontarans have been redesigned to look a lot more like classic Sontarans, given like the redesign the Cybermen got, where
True.
it
The
was a
Cybermen
mix of. It was sort of a
Mhm.
did get a
modern
little bit of
take
a modern
on the retro
yeah.
look.
And
Yeah.
that's a good segue to something I wanted to notice. I noticed that these are not the Cyber Master design, but the other design that was introduced in the Series 12 finale, with the combination of the RTD era aspects with the 1970s aspects.
Well, that was fine. I
60s.
liked that helmet in particular.
Mm-hmm.
That
Like,
helmet
yes.
is such a classic
Yeah.
drawback.
Yeah. Like like
It's
essentially
definitely
it's
more
a modern
iconic
take on a
than
classic look.
it's definitely more iconic than the RTD or Moffat era Cybermen.
Yes, it is.
The big 80s
Actually, now that I
headphones.
say that, I think that torso is more Moffat era than RTD era, but close enough.
It is. The torso looks like it's a Moffat era, but that helmet really looks.
That helmet really still screams classic Who. Cyberman.
Yeah.
That screams the invasion.
That's an invasion era helmet.
Yeah.
Which is considered the most classic Cyberman look.
But I also think it has black handlebars, which also screams back to the 1980s.
No, the concept of the Cyber Leader goes back further than that.
Yeah, I thought the black handlebars were introduced in Revenge in the 70s, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was the 70s. Actually, I don't think it was handlebars, but there was something on his helmet that was a different color than the others.
Yeah, it was actually. It wasn't. It might have been the handlebars as well, but it was the earmuffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That said, these do look a little bit nicer than somebody taking an old helmet and just spray painting it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Somebody put a lot of money into these designs, and I'm glad to see that it might be paying off.
Right.
At least for the monster designs, it seems to be paying off so far. Yes.
Yeah.
On a related note,
guess...
this is something I see with both the Centaurans and the Cybermen, where they look like just scuffed enough to have that lived in feel, like like the Star Wars original trilogy versus prequel comparison, where
Yes.
in the prequel trilogy everything was CGI and it looked too brand new, too polished. This all looks like it's been through some amount of battle. It's not like perfectly clean. So either it's all practical, or any CGI they did use is, they paid a lot of attention to texturing.
Yeah, if you
I
look
think
at that,
I think most of what we're seeing is practical.
I'm pretty
anyway.
sure it's practical because I'm
Yeah.
noticing like rust stains on the
yeah,
Sontaran.
I was about to bring that up.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's slightly rusty, and it's not just the chest piece; it's on the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
You can see bits and pieces of it in the arms.
Right.
It even looks like his belt might have been busted at one point, and he's kind of pieced it back together.
Either that or it's missing a piece, like a cover or something.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's also a matter of just, well, we're only doing 6 episodes instead of 10, so let's put some of that extra money into some of these outfits.
You mean instead of video game copycats? Yeah.
The rest of it just seems to be the Doctor and companions.
Mm-hmm. Or random person that might appear in an episode holding gun.
Well, we know that one. That's the reoccurring, like, space piratey guy.
Oh, he's
yeah.
supposed to be another reoccurring guy? Okay.
I think they just refer to him as a friend and recurring character, so not necessarily a companion, but somebody
Someone
they're
going to repeatedly bump into.
Yeah.
I mean, if he travels in the TARDIS, there'll be people arguing to count him.
But from what I can tell, no, he has his own ship. He's like Sabalam Glitz.
Basically, he's the new Glitz.
He could be a Glitz. He could be a Brigadier. He could be something else.
We'll find out.
We see the Doctor apparently attempting to assemble a cabinet at that plasma axe.
Either that, or maybe she's looking for the off switch.
or reenacting that famous photo with that God photo.
The ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
I think so. The one where they're touching fingers.
Just about to touch fingers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest of it, let's see. We've got a TARDIS shot. We've got a looking around a corner shot. We've got an in the TARDIS shot. We've got the companions looking at each other shot. So we've got the companions covered in this. But that's about all we can really glean from the trailer at this point.
And Doctor in Fog.
Why is the Doctor surprised by space?
I'm not sure it's so much the space as something in it.
Either something that's not there where it should be, or something that is where it shouldn't.
The Doctor standing alone out in a big field with fog. Oh no, I'm getting Fifth Doctor vibes. I'm playing the game of Rassilon again.
Zone. Wait.
We're in the Death Zone again. Oh shit.
God, something that
shit, we're in Wales.
Something that just occurred to me recently that for whatever reason didn't before is does it mean we're only getting that, like, because Chibnall's on his way out, does that mean we're losing this new guy after what will only be like 6 episodes essentially?
Not
or is he going to be a carryover?
And we don't know. We don't know.
I wonder, and this is purely speculative, there's really no evidence either way, but I'm wondering if that's the distinction between the new companion and the new recurring character, being that the recurring character will appear within this one 6-part story, and the new companion will continue through the 3 specials next year. But again, we have no evidence either way.
Yeah, we don't know if the companions will be staying through the regeneration or not.
Personally, I kind of hope so, because I feel like Yaz has been kind of short.
That's like been one thing that's been lacking is being able to have the companions last.
I highly doubt Yaz is going to be the next 5-year companion, but
I don't expect it to necessarily last like an insane amount of time, but
well, I mean, one season after Whittaker leaves would make her a 5-year companion. And actually, I'm not sure if we've ever had a 5-year companion.
No.
Hmm.
I guess the closest would be the Brigadier, but that's a special
Of
case.
course,
The Brigadier is, technically speaking, you would be correct in the fact that he was a critical member of there for 71 through 75.
Hmm.
Sorry, 70 through 74, excuse me.
And he has traveled
Basically,
in the TARDIS, although it was only for
John
single
Pertwee
stories.
era, the
Mhm.
Brigadier played a big part, except for the last season or two, where the Doctor got free range in the TARDIS and could do a few adventures away from Unit. But he still would
Right.
come back a couple episodes later.
He is actually more like 69 through 76 because he had a few seasons in the first Fourth Doctor.
But again, he was only an occasional person. He only showed up
exactly.
for
was
Web
not-
of Fear and the Invasion.
He wasn't there every episode. He was there like twice a season.
But starting in 70, he was there. He was an integral part of every major episode through like 71, 72, 73, 74, and then 74 he was less so.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course he just started to fade out more and more during the Tom Baker era until there were no more Unit episodes. And then he'd show up again, usually like once or twice in a Doctor's run. He showed up for the 5th, and I think he missed the 6th entirely and showed up for the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Actually, yeah.
I guess if you go purely by years from when she started to when she finishes, if Yaz is in at least the specials, she'll be a 5-year companion.
Right, I was going to say this. Yeah, currently she's only going to be a 3-year.
No, she'll be a 4-year companion. Well, if you're counting off time, she's
right. Well,
I'm counting
saying,
seasons.
So this is going to be her 3rd consecutive season, and then she'll be into 3 specials that would make 4 years.
Yeah.
Where there's not counting because
that's not counting off time, and it's not counting New Year's as an entire year because that would be ridiculous. Because she may have, I forget if no, I don't think she appeared in a New Year's before. Whatever.
Yeah, I guess it'll depend, but either she'll.
It'll be interesting if she does, because that'll be the first time we'll have a companion stay through an entire showrunner's run.
Yeah, and go into the next one still.
I mean,
which has not happened since Classic Who.
I'm saying unless you count the ones that left and came back during the RTD run.
Well, yeah. Well, companions would make reoccurring roles.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it, Rose was a 2-season companion. She stayed through Eccleston's year and Tennant's first.
Mm-hmm.
Martha was a 1-season. Donna was a 1-season. And then he had nobody his last season.
Yeah.
And then you get to Moffat, and then you had Amy and Rory, and then half a season of Amy and Rory before they stepped down. 5, 6, and the first half of 7.
Right.
Clara.
Clara was the second half of 7, 8, and 9.
And then you had Bill for a season.
Yeah. If anything, I guess it'll might be like the new guy hangs over to the new Doctor, but that would be like it.
Yeah.
And Yaz will probably leave.
Mind
I
you,
think that's more likely.
I would have loved to see Yaz do the full bit. I would find it funnier than hell if the Doctor regenerates back into a guy and let Yaz lose his interest after the first couple episodes and leaves.
Right.
Well, so it's RTD taking over though, so you never know.
So I see this article does also have some of the behind-the-scenes news, which is good because I wasn't sure if we actually had that as part of our news. But so we have of the 6 episodes this season, 5.5 of them are written by Chibnall, with the other half being one episode that's co-written by Maxine Alderton, with directing credits by Jamie Magnus Stone and Azure Salim. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly.
Neither name really rings a bell in my head immediately either way.
Jamie Magnus Stone. It was somebody from one of the previous series.
Yeah, Stone did a lot of Series 12 directing.
Hmm.
All right.
Ah,
Sir, what?
like your microphone screeched in my ear.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Was there anything more to say about this article?
Yep.
Don't think so.
No.
All right. So that was our big piece of news, and I'll admit we spent more time on it than I thought we would.
Oh, we've got no geek talk, so.
Yeah, but we
But that
got
doesn't
12.
mean that we need to keep
or-
sitting here. So moving right along.
We've
Right,
got
right.
10
Okay.
episodes to slog through and review.
So
So, Big
of
Finish
the news.
has some new releases. The first one is Dalek Universe 3 with David Tennant, Jane Slavin, Alex Kingston, and Terry Malloy. So that would be the 10th Doctor, River Song, and Davros.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Third Doctor Adventures, Conspiracy in Space, and the Devil's Hoofprints with Jim Trelawney, Katie Manning, Sadie Miller, and John Colshaw. So again, that's probably Trelawney doing his Third Doctor impersonation. Katie Manning as Joe Grant. And Sadie Miller and John Colshaw filling in as needed. Probably John Colshaw doing the Brigadier.
Probably.
Now that I think about it. So those are what's new from Big Finish. And that will wrap up the news. Moving on to the rumor mill. And this is not so much of a rumor as actual news. So Sony Pictures is in final efforts to buy Bad Wolf Studios. Why am I bringing this up? Because Bad Wolf Studios is going to be one of the co-producers for Series 13.
You mean 14?
Oh, wait, no, not 13, 14. They're going to be working with Russell T to bring Doctor Who to the screen. I'm not sure what that's going to do for the co-relations that are currently in the United States. Sony Pictures, the BBC is real cozy with Warner Brothers at the moment, and has been for decades.
At this point, yeah.
Sony Pictures
hence
is
the
kind of
Doctor Who shows appearing on HBO Max.
Why they jumped Amazon Prime to HBO Max as soon as it started up. Yes. And Sony Pictures is kind of a rival for that.
Right. Although Sony does not have their own streaming service currently.
Correct.
Which makes watching Spider-Man movies difficult.
Mm-hmm. No, the big thing I'm worried about is how that's going to affect production of the new series, not the streaming. Whether Sony is going to object to the co-production or what's going to happen there. Things could change.
Partially depends on what's already in writing, I imagine.
Yeah, and what is Sony trying to acquire Bad Wolf Studios for? Mm-hmm. Do they just see it as an investment, or do they have a purpose?
Because, like, I think we went over this either last week or the week before, but Bad Wolf Productions hasn't really done that much yet, has it? Like,
it's done like 3 or 4 series.
It gives the impression of a studio that's gathering steam, with its biggest asset being that many of its producers and actors are veterans.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally started up by the old Doctor Who production team. Julie Gardner, who was the head of drama at the time, and her main lackey were the 2 main founders, and then they dragged Russell into it and had him produce a few series. And now they've suddenly bit on Doctor Who. So yeah. I don't know. They just might see it as an investment, but
I mean, does Sony have any UK specific like TV ties already? Because maybe
Not
this is
that I'm
them trying to
aware
get
of.
into that.
I'll have to ask. I'll have to ask my contacts in England, but nothing I'm aware of.
Because maybe this is them trying to get in to that market or something.
It's possible. Kind of a weird way of doing it, but it is possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted you all to be aware of that situation
Hmm.
and think of the possibilities. Let us know if you have any theories. Would be interested.
I don't see anything relevant on Wikipedia that they're connected to currently.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the rumor I had. I just wanted to bring people's attention to it. So we're skipping Geek Talk and we're moving right into this episode flashback review. We've already reviewed each of these episodes, so this is not going to be rating. We're just going to talk about it and remind people what it's like before the new series comes out in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, shall we get down to it? Bill, you're the one that thought up this whole thing, so.
All right. Yeah, so it seems unless anybody has come up with any better ideas than me, I think that the best way to go through it is just going through the season linearly and pretty much any comments or anything that that we feel is worth discussing in context that we wouldn't have been aware of when the series aired. So to start off, we have Spyfall Part 1, which was the first Part 1 in Doctor Who since the end of the RTD era, and was the New Year's special for 2020, which feels like it was 5-6 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Yes. We were just hearing words of this weird virus that was working in China. Or no, this was the beginning of 2020. Yeah, we were just hearing those rumors.
Yeah, we were just hearing that it might get over here.
So one thing that stood out to me when I rewatched it, and I don't think this is something we would have noticed at the time, but I think there's a good chance it was an intentional Easter egg, is that when C is shot, they ask who killed him, and then he says, "Oh," and of course, obviously, you assume that it's like "oh" as in surprise, or "oh" as in "oh shit, I've been shot." But in retrospect, knowing what we know now, I think it was a hint by Chibnall.
Impossible.
I mean, I just remember. God, I forget if there's a specific nod to it in the. Oh yeah, there is. There's a nod after the reveal where the master is like, "So yeah, I've still got a good aim. Still got a good eye for it," and it's like, call back to the Deadly Assassin, which there's a few in this series like that. Well, one or two nods to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's actually was intended. By the way, that he was actually saying "oh, killed him," but everyone took it as "oh."
Right.
I remember that the feel of 2 didn't match the feel of 1, which was an issue for me.
Yeah, part 1 I remember liking a lot, and it was actually a pretty good like spy thriller, hence the Spyfall name. Part 2 just like,
Yeah, part 1 was very much a James Bond parody. Part 2 was a lot more maybe traditional Doctor Who, maybe a little, maybe something a little original, but not. It's definitely not as much of a departure from a normal episode as Part 1 was. Like Part
It's
1
actually
was
kind
filled
of
with tropes and references that Part 2 I don't think really was.
Now,
Yeah,
here's the thing. Part 1 was directed by Jamie Magnus Stone. And like I said, I loved the feel of that episode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That one came out pretty good. And then the second part was directed by Lee Haven Jones. So I think that was a mistake that they had. They should have had the same director direct both episodes.
Yeah, they
Because
need
Yeah,
to tie
I
it a
mean, it
bit
makes
better.
sense too.
But
I will
yes, then
say,
you.
when we
That's,
I feel like when we first covered these, I said that like part 2 wasn't as much of a letdown as two-parters normally were in Doctor Who, and I honestly feel like I stand by that, because if that was my position, or if not, then it's changed, because I actually like, yeah, there is still a drop off, but I didn't feel it as much as I have in others. So I feel like of the stuff in this series, this is, I feel like, probably aged the best, arguably.
You're saying part 1 and part 2, or
Yeah.
okay? I can kind of definitely see if it wasn't called part 1 and part 2, I don't think the two different directors would be a problem, because it would be basically saying they're two related stories, but they're different, just as in the way of two-parters in Doctor Who up until now have often been kind of two different stories that are related. But calling it
So-
part
Yeah.
1 and part 2, I can see how the two different styles is more jarring.
And
Mhm.
actually, it was lazy titling. I mean,
Yeah.
this had been Russell T. It would have been another like Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel kind of thing.
Mhm.
So you would
Yeah,
have
the
Or,
got
first one should have been
even-
Spyfall,
Spyfall,
and this. And,
Mm.
yeah, the first one should have been Spyfall, and the second one should have just been named something else
like
completely.
Time of the Master or something.
or even I think
Yeah.
like Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon. Those are two episodes with very different tones, especially at the start of their given episodes. But of course, it's a two-part story.
Yeah.
Did we get episode titles ahead of time with that one?
I think we knew there was a two-parter, and both of them were called Spyfall.
That was all we
'Cause
knew.
It might have intentionally been a thing to like avoid giving the game away.
Oh,
Well-
to avoid spoiling anything about the story.
Yeah.
They could have just told us the first episode's called Spyfall and just let
Yeah,
us go
Yeah.
from there.
true.
If they wanted to really avoid that, they should have just given us the first one and then shut their mouths, but no.
Mm.
Any more on that one?
I'm trying to come up with a name for part 2, and I'm failing, especially if you make sure not to use the word master.
Time of the Kasavan?
Yeah, true.
I mean, Doctor Who titles, I immediately think X of the Y, so.
And there's quite a bit of X of the Y in this, or I mean, there's one X of Y without, or the X of Y instead of X of the Y. But there's still
I
a
feel
bunch
like
of that in this season.
The Kasavan invasion. They are trying
I mean-
to invade Earth, apparently.
I mean, all I can think of is like Bringers of Light, but that sounds like a title that already exists in Doctor Who.
Pretty sure it does.
It does.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was a series 10.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway, shall we move on to the next one?
Yep. So then we have Orphan 55.
Hated it.
Garbage.
It's
This-
funny. I remember very easily being the most kind, I guess is the word. I didn't love it or anything, but I just remember it did not bug me anywhere near as much as it did everyone else.
If I recall, the last 5 minutes was the biggest complaint we had when we reviewed
In
it.
particular, but I had other complaints even before then, because they started off the episode really nice and really strong, and before they even reached the halfway point, they're literally throwing everything they were doing really well out the window.
And
I mean,
but the big reveal that Soylent Green is Earth, and that it was all our fault for fucking up the planet. It was just it just turned the entire episode into preachy garbage.
And basically
episode
made
went
me
to
give
shit
like fuck
faster
you
than
to
a
the
Louis
writer.
Bowl movie.
um, yeah, I mean, I know a complaint we had was it might have been Matt that specifically brought it up, unless I beat him to it, where the monsters were all right so long as they were in low
Yes.
lighting. As soon as they're
Mhm.
like out and you see the whole thing, it's like, okay, now it's not working as well.
Now it's not
Oh.
working as well. And then they just literally walk into an open, flat area, and it's like, oof, that looks terrible.
Actually, talking about the message reminds me of something with Spyfall Part 2 I almost forgot about. And that is rewatching the season. I very much, and I think they might have said this when Chibnall took over, but you very clearly get the idea that this is targeted at, like, these episodes are each intended to be lessons for kids. You get dumb questions specifically so that things that the average adult in the audience would know, but the young kids in the audience wouldn't, can be explained. And
I
a
think they're
part
talking
of
down to
that,
children. That's not necessary.
yes, and part of that, I know we talked a couple weeks ago about how Chibnall does not have a lot of experience writing for children, and I think that really comes through. That's really clear when you look at these episodes as a binge, in that there's a lot of talking down to kids because it's like it's a story that's kind of written for adults, and then they shoehorn these things in to tell kids, but without really accepting that kids can like ask questions on their own or read between the lines. They need
Well,
to be told
in
not
that
only is this
case, it's
a
literally
planet
him
that
not
had a
even just talking
nuclear.
down to kids. It's him talking down to
Mhm.
the audience. In which case, the audience has every right to give him the middle finger for talking down
Mhm.
at them like that.
And here's the thing. Before Chibnall, Doctor Who had a reputation for never talking down to its audience.
Mm-hmm.
And Chibnall just pretty much blew that away.
By the way, Spyfall we gave a 4.0 and Orphan 55 a 3.0.
As a group,
And I think
Yeah.
the only reason it averaged to a 3 is because I gave it a bit higher
Thomas
than
is
like
too nice to
highest than
Orphan
everyone else.
55.
I mean, I know I didn't give it a 4. I was like, well, it's not great, but I didn't think it was lower than a 3 or anything.
And this is the episode where we got Ryan flirting with a girl, but that really doesn't go anywhere. He never really shows any interest in flirting with anybody ever again, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Somebody
a bit of
somebody flirts with
jerkiness.
him.
Yeah, there's a bit of jerkiness in God, I think it's either Spyfall or something where he's joking with Yaz about getting
And
Yaz's
talking
sister's number.
Spyfall, Yaz's sister wants Ryan's number, and
Yeah.
Yaz is kind of keeping them apart.
Yeah. Which never ultimately went anywhere, but oh well.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
Although we have another season of Yaz, but I don't get the impression they're spending a lot of time on modern day Earth in this coming season.
And to be honest, I hope not, because thank God. I'm just kind of sick of modern day Earth in Doctor Who.
yeah, I don't mind
True.
them coming back every, 3, 4 episodes.
Mm.
I'm
But
not a huge fan of the 3 times a season we'll come back and talk about, oh, why aren't you going to work or school often enough
Yeah.
no, I
stuff
don't like
anymore.
that. But, they had in Modern Who they had the formula: episode in the past, episode in the future, episode in the present.
Mm.
For certain doctors, like the second Doctor, I think almost never, like very rarely went to modern day Earth. I think a few other doctors very similar.
No, I meant Modern Who, Bill.
Oh, I thought you said classic. Sorry.
No, I
No.
said Modern Who. Look at the first season.
Mhm.
Rose, present. Next one, future. One after that, past. Then it returned to the present.
That still counts as spending a lot of time on modern day Earth.
I didn't mind it that much.
At least it was a different speed every time.
The
But
problem
generally,
is,
I mean,
with Chibnall, is every time he goes to the future, it sucks. because he has no writers that can write actual science fiction.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I remember I was like, there's been a lot of discussion and speculation with the announcement of RTD, and I know one thing that people have been talking about is that they feel that Chib and I don't think there's any of those really in this, or there's not many in this season to really talk about, so we might as well mention, or actually the next thing we talk about is actually one of them, but the historicals in the Chibnall era focus a lot more on the history aspect, whereas the historicals in the RTD era mostly focused on, and in the Moffat era focused on what sci-fi. Okay, especially RTD focused on what sci-fi thing is here, and they didn't really care about the history much. And I think that's part of Chibnall's, the whole focus on, going back to its roots of teaching kids history. Um, but I think that was a good thing that came out of that, is that there's a bit more actual history explored in the Chibnall era that people are
Hmm.
hoping to see continue.
All
Hmm.
right, well, speaking of the next episode,
Yep.
let's go on.
Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, which we gave a 4.2 collectively.
I thought it wasn't that bad. I mean, there was some historical
Hmm.
inaccuracies. They kind of made Tesla's life kind of a pastiche, with all of it happening but basically within a few months of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But and the same thing with Edison. But other than that, it wasn't that bad.
Hmm.
It was okay. It definitely
Hmm.
wasn't like outstanding, but it was fine. It was an
Hmm.
average Doctor Who episode.
I generally feel like I remember giving it credit for not doing the obvious and having Edison team up with the alien. That's basically his uber capitalism shoved back in his face. Which, it would have been easy to just make him join up with the villain, probably. But it's like the fact that he doesn't is like, oh, well, that's nice.
Instead, I think they almost go
um,
too much the other way. He's sort of frenemies with Tesla. I mean, yeah, with Tesla, instead of as bitter rivals as, at least by the
mm,
end, he's frenemies, whereas I don't think they were ever that civil with each other by that point in their
mm.
real lives.
To be fair, given what they go through in the episode, it's believable that they would gain
Well,
some
that's
level
part
of
of the
respect.
writing of the episode,
Also,
right?
yeah, also it's a matter of, as soon as everything goes back to normal, they could very easily
Start
turn on each
slipping down
other
again,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't take much. Um,
So I had this weird feeling watching Haley McGee's Dorothy Scarrett voice, or listening to it, that she was trying to do a Perry impression for the entire episode. It was really distracting during my second watch. Or rewatch, whatever number rewatch. It's probably second, possibly third. Every
uh,
time she spoke, I was like, is that supposed to be Perry?
uh, honestly, for me, like the most interesting takeaway I think I can remember anyway, because I didn't get a chance to rewatch this. It's just the fact that we got the actress who played Ronnie back,
Yep.
just as the alien in this
Mm-hmm.
particular case.
As the
Uh,
Queen of the Skithra.
hmm. And it's funny because I remember being able to be like, as soon as it came up, because I don't think they necessarily went out of their way to say it was her at first. But I was looking at her face and I'm like, that face looks really familiar through all that makeup. And sure enough,
I
it
do
was that
remember we
actress.
had
I was like,
I
oh
do
wow.
remember we had covered that when as we were getting news about the upcoming episodes.
Hmm.
And it was especially like it kind of synced up because she also played I think she played the queen of the damn it, I'm forgetting the name of a species again in that Dalek, that animated Dalek miniseries that we were
Oh, right.
reviewing.
Oh
The other
yeah.
robot things.
God, yeah, I can't remember them either.
Starts with an M.
Yeah.
I should know this, but it's what happens when I
Ah.
speak out loud.
Mechanoids.
Oh, the
Thank
mechanoids.
you.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It's when I was just talking to someone about how sometimes when I'm having a conversation orally, I forget words that I definitely know.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, I have this gigantic database of all this shit in my head. If I can't come up with it, then there's a problem. And what's weird is it's not just a Doctor Who database. Freaking, I can do that with Star Trek. I can
Figure there got
occasionally
to
do
be
it
at
with old
least Doctor
episodes
Who,
of
Star Trek,
Ghostbusters cartoon.
Ranma.
Yeah. Can do it with old episodes of the real Ghostbusters. My brain just has this category where it just files all this pop culture, and I can instant access that. But help me if I'm trying to remember somebody's name I met 5 minutes ago.
Right. I would love to have that kind of memory for names and faces, but heaven forbid I can ever forget the entire library of Godzilla movies.
You know, and the thing is, not remembering names runs in my family. My great grandparents were great because they would basically just run down the names for the correct gender children. For years, my mother's name was Mary Kay Ruth Pat Kathy because she would just go right down until she hit the right generation and the right name. My mother's sister was Mary Kay Ruth Pat Kathy Susan.
I mean, I used to have trouble remembering a friend of mine's younger brother, and they lived across the road. So
But the name of, the aliens that fought the Daleks and eventually gave them the virus, the Movellans, I fucking remember that shit.
That might be why I'm fucking it up, because the Daleks have two nemeses that have
They
names
start
that
with
start
M.
with an M. But that's getting a bit away from Night of Terror at that point.
Well, honestly, I think we're done talking Night of Terror if we're wandering away from it then. So
I do think they kind of over-idealized Tesla, but to be honest, I don't necessarily
That's a
know
very
if...
modern view on Tesla.
I don't know if any of his ideas are things that they just came up with, or if it was all factual.
a number of them were based on some of his stuff.
I knew a lot of them he had definitely had, but I wasn't sure if they all
Tesla
were
had
true.
a ton of ideas. What he was very hard to do is actualize them. He kept, for instance, that big freaking ball that he had. I researched this stuff. Apparently, it was just made to send radio transmissions across the Pacific, or across the Atlantic Ocean. The problem was he kept wanting to add stuff to it, and add stuff to it, and add stuff to it. And the people investing were like, "This is not what we were investing for you to do." And Tesla's like, "Tough, I can do this." And at the end, he couldn't meet any deadlines. He couldn't do this, and the investors just stopped investing because all of his research was going nowhere. It didn't help that he was not the only people progressing in this field. The first person to actually send our radio transmission across the Atlantic was actually Emil Marconi. And Tesla found this out, and it's like, well, then I have to do something even better. I'm going to send power across the ocean through the air. And,
yeah, this is where Tesla runs into problems.
He just kept trying to, capitalize on this, and part of it, I think, was he was getting an inferiority complex because he had Edison just across the bay going, but still, it just, he had a whole books of ideas, some of which were absolutely batshit crazy, but he was not able to actualize any of it past his first AC generator that Westinghouse used for years.
You know what would be funny? This is something that Doctor Who is probably the only show that could do, or actually maybe Bill and Ted. Tesla and Da Vinci comparing sketchbooks.
Oh yeah, there's
That would
another
be more of a Bill
batshit
Ted thing,
crazy
yeah.
dude. Mind you, Da Vinci was ahead of his time in many ways. So was Tesla in many ways. I mean, Tesla's
Which that's the
concepts.
part that this episode really capitalizes on, of course.
Tesla's concepts would eventually be utilized, but not in the way he expected. You might consider Tesla to be the grandfather of the wireless G network, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Technically.
Technically, he never saw it as a way of sending data. He just thought of a way of sending electricity. But that same concept became a thing for data transmissions. And Da Vinci, of course, Jesus. The helicopter, the submarine. He had a billion things that he had in his notebook that somebody else eventually actualized hundreds of years later.
Yep.
All right, so after Night of Terror was Fugitive of the Jadoon, which definitely I think became the most talked about, most controversial episode of the first half of the season.
Yes.
Out of context, interesting setup. In context, the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it was.
I think everyone who watched it could agree that Joe Martin was a wonderful actor, great character when removed from context.
Yes.
I loved the setup. Like, even rewatching it, knowing I was like, I love the way they set up this mystery of, what is going on? Is this, I remember, I know there was speculation of being a parallel universe doctor. They never really suggest that on screen. But there's definitely the huge question of, okay, two doctors that don't remember having been one another. One has never used a sonic screwdriver and still works with Gallifreyans, where the other clearly is, more akin to what we're used to. What is really going on here?
And putting this in context, their resolution for this is what I absolutely feared they would do when I saw the episode. Because what they did makes no sense.
Makes no sense for just about everything.
Yeah.
Funny thing is
since
if
we're
they
looking at
just
this in
made
review, we can spoiler
Yeah.
the fact that the Doctor basically runs into a currently hidden version of herself from the past that she doesn't remember.
This past Doctor is highly aggressive, highly weaponized, and again, as we mentioned, also works very willingly with the Time Lords.
But I don't know if at least very willing to bluff, because she even acknowledges, yes, you're right about I'm not actually going to kill them, but they don't need to know that.
But that's not part of my issue. Part of my issue is that it takes other things in canon and bends it over its knee, spanks it in there. Why does she have a police box TARDIS?
Yes,
that doesn't make sense.
And of course, that is largely for the, the what the fuck moment when the Doctor sees this and is like, what's going on? But with any sort of remote context, it makes no sense, which is why I'm sure there are people who, gun to their head, will say that the only way that the Ruth Doctor makes sense is if she's in between Pertwee and Troughton.
I mean,
Pertwee.
It's the only way a police box TARDIS makes sense to me. And I'm pretty sure, I forget if I specifically brought it up or we just sort of collectively had the thought, but I would have been much more interested if the lighthouse had been the TARDIS.
That would have also made more sense.
Yes, it would have.
Just also because of the visual of, like, instead of the little light on the police box flashing, if the
it would be the light in the lighthouse flashing as it takes off. Yeah.
It would have been nice, and it would have made more sense, and I wouldn't have been half as pissed.
Right.
But also the way they set up this character is that the way they're explaining it, at least, is that she's from before even the first Doctor, which
Right.
no.
And another trap this fell into is just like I was about the Star Wars prequels. One of the traps they fell into there was it was coming out 20 years after the original movies, was making everything higher tech than the original movies. Same thing with the Ruth Doctor, where her TARDIS really comes off as being much higher tech than the classic era TARDIS, which doesn't work if you're trying to claim that she's between or before the classic era.
Yeah, I think I brought that up.
Yeah, that doesn't work either.
Hmm. I mean, I guess we've never seen a what is it? Technically, this well, it's not the CIA. They know about that, but uh, something adjacent to that. TARDIS might be specifically what she had. I don't know.
So, looking back when we rated this, Bill and Thomas gave it 4s.
I'm the only one I think that didn't go back and lower the score at this point.
Yeah.
Because I think I initially gave it a 4.5 and then brought it down.
And I brought mine down by, I think, a point.
Yeah, I believe I already fixed mine again.
Yeah, you did.
Hmm.
I was just curious as to what the average on this one was, because in retrospect, it is such a disappointment. Because I remember when this first came out, and we were like, at the time, it's like, okay, no, I'd like to see where this goes.
I'd like to see where this
Yeah.
goes. This is a tentative score. We'll see where this goes because there's been a lot of rumors saying that's going to unfold a bit more at the end of the season. Oh
And
boy.
related to that, we were excited. This is hinting at the return of Captain Jack, hinting at the return of the Cybermen, and we really didn't know how they were going to follow up on either of those either.
Yeah.
And with Captain Jack, they didn't until those specials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's definitely something. They talk like Jack really gives this impression as okay, he's seems to be involved with the cyber war, which means he's been living in the future and dealing with that sort of stuff, or at least and maybe part of the plan to send the Siberian back through time, whatever. And then the next time you see him, he's in the modern day, and I don't even.
In an alien prison.
He's there
Trying
just
to
to
release
break
the
out the
Doctor.
Doctor. He didn't even have anything to do with he didn't know there were Daleks on Earth or anything. It was literally just about the Doctor. So the context is so completely removed from this episode that the only connection between the foreshadowing and the payoff is, oh yeah, Jack will see the Doctor again. But in universe, that they don't make any sense as leading into one another.
No.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. And again, that's something that Russell T would be better at, and Chibnall just not.
Yeah, Russell T would have been over that, all over how this connects together, like in a heartbeat.
Unfortunately, we probably will not see Jack Harkness with Russell T, because apparently John Barrowman's on the BBC's blacklist right now.
Oh, that's right, because BBC's being a pain about that right now.
Yep.
Anything else about Future Judoon?
Not really. I think it's just a colossal disappointment. It had potential, and they just took it.
Yeah,
In the
there's a
absolute
lot of
wrong
potential
way.
there, and they just yeeted it
Oh.
out the window.
I did really like the way in the first half of the episode when there's that whole who's the fugitive, what is going on with Ruth's husband, all of that. I thought that stuff was handled really well and isn't really related to the whole big questions of the season. But just that whole idea of what's going on, what's the mystery. It's I don't think anybody could really figure it out on their own, but that's not to say that it was completely oblique. There's it makes sense when you already know looking back, but you're not going to be like, oh yeah, obviously this this shifty guy must be the Doctor's companion hiding the Doctor. You're not going to know that ahead of time. But it definitely makes for a decent mystery and decent thriller scenes.
It also annoys me because they broke certain things of continuity in that another way too, with the fact that didn't they already reveal that Gallifrey was gone, and then you've got a CIA agent pursuing the Doctor to kill the Doctor, but the other Doctor. And, you know, that's kind of like shit that shouldn't happen.
Although, actually, now that I think about it, so the implication, as far as I understand, is that the reason why Ruth's husband still has his memories is because he was always human. He was a companion. So how did he train on Gallifrey and get a medal before humans were allowed on Gallifrey?
Oh, that breaks continuity too.
Yeah, this episode fucks continuity
Yeah,
so
this
many
yeah
ways
this
over.
is this episode's a warning signal
that's
that
the thing,
continuity is getting bent over.
And that's the thing. When it came out, that there was that's why there's so much to be like, oh, this is from an alternate universe where Gallifrey was never destroyed, or all of that.
And again, that's a lot of people hand waving, trying to give an excuse
Well,
to exist without it being a pain.
It was less excuses and more trying to make connections with what little we had, because it does not make sense to try and say that this is before the Fourth Doctor era. So the only place it could fit, if it's not an alternate universe, would be between the 8th and 9th Doctor. But that doesn't really make sense.
That doesn't make sense because we should know who that Doctor is.
She should know who the sonic screwdriver, what the sonic screwdriver
That
is.
too.
Well, she knows what a sonic screwdriver is. Just she says she's smart enough not to need one.
Oh, so you could. She makes a comment about like whatever that thingamabob is or whatever. You could kind of interpret it as she knows and is being facetious, but
No, she's like, having like rewatched it. It's very much, she's very flippant about the sonic screwdriver because it's from early enough. Honestly, even if it was a season 6B type thing, it would be early enough in the Doctor's lifespan to go, yeah, I don't need that stupid thing.
Except the second Doctor used his all the time.
Did he? I only remember
by the end of his run, he was using it quite frequently. Yes,
he used it, but I didn't think he used it all that much. I thought it was the third Doctor that started using it a lot.
He used it during the end of his second season, and frequently throughout his third.
No, he started using it a lot more often as they kept going.
Not gonna lie, the only instance I can remember off the top of my head is him literally using it as a screwdriver.
Yeah,
which was his last episode.
I thought he only used it once or twice, yeah. By which I mean 1 or 2 stories, not once or twice total.
But anyway.
Okay. By the way, Lee, Ruth's husband, was probably not human. He probably had some kind of bioshield.
Oh,
I mean, they do seem to imply that there's a bioshield around him. So.
Okay, but if it was the whole fob watch situation, then he wouldn't have his memories.
Not a chameleon arch. An item on there that was masking his physiology. Something to baffle the Jadoon scans. Because there's also some points during the show where he's muttering under his breath about human behavior.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So he was probably a renegade Gallifreyan.
Just not necessarily a Time Lord.
Well, if he got the same training as Gat, he probably is or was, but he's gone renegade.
Yeah, that sounds even less like the Doctor again, because very seldom does the Doctor bring other Time Lords along with.
I see Wolf and Forest in chat, but I don't know how long ago the message was saying I didn't mind it either, so I'm not sure which thing that was.
That was from like 20 minutes ago, so.
Oh, okay. Twitch is just telling me new without giving me a timestamp. Thank you, Twitch.
So have we said enough about this one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Unless anybody else had anything they wanted to say. I know I kind of brought us back to the first half of the episode after we talked about the second half. So, which the next thing would be Praxius, which we gave a 3.8. And binging it actually I found really helped because I didn't realize that the setup for Praxius of like the 3 different things on 3 different continents was given at the very end of Fugitive of the Jadoon. I had forgotten that between weeks back in 2020.
Yeah.
Back
I
in
hadn't forgotten
2020
that.
as if it was such a long
I
time
knew it.
ago.
I remember that from back then.
But I remember when I watched Praxius the first time, I did not remember those 1 or 2 lines about that, so I had no idea what was going on at first.
No, I remember that set up and that they paid it off in the next part, which was nice. We don't see that often in New Who these days.
Right.
However, I remember Praxius mostly as being the episode that the Doctor once again had to take time out of the script to bitch at us about how we're destroying the planet.
That not even just the Doctor. This episode, like I remember at the time, very much saying that this felt like watching Birdemic in that it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Mhm.
The birds were dying, and it was overly preachy without the story being as coherent as it should have been.
I mean, I remember
Especially when it got to the whole point of the like the TARDIS just manufacturing vaccines that they sprayed in the air and all of that.
I mean, like, I remember my main takeaway from this being that this was like Orphan 55 done right.
At the time, I felt that
right.
way. However, I'm looking at it in retrospect, and I don't feel that way anymore.
But for
I
the
do
record,
feel that the Doctor's bitching was more in character in this than it was in Orphan 55.
okay.
Yeah, this
for
is
the
more of a
record-
sledgehammer as opposed to a jackhammer.
For the record, I gave this episode a full point lower than anybody else did at the time.
Yeah, everybody else gave it a solid 4. Bill gave it a 3.
Oh, really? I gave this a 4?
Yes, you
Yep.
did.
Oof.
Of course, the main thing I remember at the time, and even now, remember thinking is that in that split moment where it turns out that the scientist lady or whoever isn't necessarily human or whatever the fuck, or just isn't from Earth, being like, oh my god, it could be the Rani. And like, of course it wouldn't be. Knew who was never going to
That has
bring
been
her
a
back at
tease
this
we've been
point.
wanting for a while and has never come to fruition.
Because I'm like, well, it's mad
Russell T
science
may
shit.
actually do that because
It almost would have made more sense because they were just like, we searched the cosmos for a planet that was so saturated in plastics that it couldn't help but be fucked up by our virus so that we could study the virus more. And it's like, that is some mad science shit on a level the Ronnie would really like get behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I can just see right now in Russell's den, he's sitting there just like, okay, I have to write a new season of Doctor Who. What can I throw at them? Well, we've done Daleks, we've done Cybermen, we've done the Master.
Chumblies and the Ronnie.
The Ronnie. We can do the Ronnie. All right. And then, I can imagine that's what's happening right now in Russell's den.
Okay, yes, we can do the Ronnie. But let's not do it right away. We need to build to that.
If
First.
season 14 comes out and the bad guy's the Ronnie, I want to say I called it right here.
I have dibs on season 15.
I have dibs on Chumblies.
Fine. I also have dibs on jelly babies.
Okay,
Oh no, that's
there's
just a
a
running text.
there's a pretty, I'm not going to say extremely good chance, but I would not be remotely surprised if that came up in the next season, the next RTD season.
Mm.
What?
Jelly
Well,
babies.
especially since he's doing
Yeah.
the 60th, so.
Mhm.
Right. Anything else we have to say about Praxius?
Not really. I mean, I remember the fact that the freaking birds,
The
that
bird
they
effects
had.
remind you of a better version of Birdemic, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's like one practical bird, I think, thing in there at one point, and it's like,
Oof.
Like how they didn't know what to do with the one girl at the end, so she's like, "Let me follow you along on your honeymoon and vlog about it." And they were like, "Well, I guess we don't have a good argument about that." So,
Yeah. All right, so let's move on.
all right, next is Can You Hear Me, which we
And
gave a 4.1.
this was the only episode I could not remember the plot to by title alone.
Oh yeah, this one. The Immortals.
Yes.
I like the idea of the Immortals, and I love the references made through them, but I don't care for the whole finger thing. I don't know, it just doesn't really affect me, and it comes off as kind of lame in this episode.
I think there are definitely scenes in there where it looked creepy, but I imagine it looks more creepy to, say, someone young enough to have never watched, or I mean, not even just young enough, like, you've watched all the Phantasm movies. I wouldn't expect you to be creeped out by it.
I've only seen the first two.
Oh, I thought you had.
Not all of them, just the
Oh,
first two so
okay.
far.
I thought you had seen. Okay.
I own all of them. I haven't gotten around to
Oh,
seeing
maybe
them all
that's what
yet.
I was thinking. Okay.
I can't believe it. There's a horror movie Matt hasn't seen.
Well, you should see the pile of the ones I'm still waiting to get to.
That reminds me, there's a new Halloween movie on Peacock. Isn't Peacock free? Can I just sit there and watch that?
Is it on Peacock?
Depends if it's on Peacock or Peacock Premium or whatever.
Oh, okay. Is there a premium? I
There
know.
didn't used to be, but I think I noticed an ad for it last time I was on that
I'm
service.
pretty sure Aaron watched it.
I know Aaron watched it,
on
and I asked
streaming,
where does one get to see it, and I didn't get a satisfactory answer, as I recall.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, so I
So I
wasn't
don't know.
sure if somebody here had that information, because if I can just like load up Peacock and watch it for $0, I'll watch it even though I didn't.
Yeah, I'll
see
make an
the,
account just so I can see it. Yeah.
the third movie named Halloween, which is a sequel to Halloween 2 or Halloween 1.
Halloween, the original. It's like Halloween. It's Halloween 1978.
It is
Halloween
with Peacock Premium.
2018.
Oh, okay.
It is with premium. Ugh.
Yep. Yeah, I
See,
just popped it up on my phone.
They
and
weren't
Halloween
advertising
Kills.
premium. They were just saying Peacock.
Yeah, but I'm there and it has a watch with premium. How much is premium? $5 a month, not bad.
Actually, yeah, that's not too bad.
I shouldn't
I'll
add
think
any
about
new
it.
premium services while the Yahtzee, I don't know if it's pronounced Yahtzee, the Yahtzee strike is going on.
But that's, by the way, that is $5 a month with ads, just to let you know.
On a related note, I canceled Netflix, not just because of the Yahtzee strike, but also because they fired the person who organized the trans protest against a certain recent comedy special, but I don't want to go off on a tangent about that.
Too late.
So Can You Hear Me? I remember when we reviewed this, we said it would have been interesting if it had actually been the White and Black Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Do we still kind of feel that way?
Yeah.
It would
The
have been
Immortals
better,
are interesting, but they're not that interesting.
I do feel they're kind of out of the blue and they're kind of beaten too easily for what the plot is.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a takeaway being that we thought this would have been served better as a two-parter.
Okay.
Um,
That might be an idea too to better develop it.
Like
I
at
did
least
feel.
so, and I
Go
think
ahead.
that was like I think that went into the idea of them being beaten too easily. Like if there's a two-parter, you can set them up first, and then like you've got another full episode to determine how they're going to be
Or
beaten, sort of
or
a
even
thing.
like on rewatching, it's very clear. It was very clear on a rewatch that this episode entirely a vehicle to again talk down to the audience and be like, talk to somebody about your feelings. Go to therapy or go to group or talk to talk to somebody. Don't bottle things up, because that's pretty much all of the subplots were about that. And then there's like a dedicated chunk in the last like 15 minutes of the episodes where it's literally every like it's not even a montage, because a montage would be a lot faster, of everybody going through their own version of figuring that out. And I feel like if they had covered that a little more quickly, or made it a little more either subtext or just like not been a long chunk in a row of so many of those plots wrapping up in the same way at the same time, there would have been more time for plot to develop naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I mean, I don't remember liking it, but I guess I'd prefer that to the thing I've never seen that Randy has complained about several times about the whole "if you need help, here's these hotlines" kind of thing they did after Vincent and the
That's
Vincent and the
Doctor.
Doctor.
basically what they did here.
Well, but they did it within the context of the episode rather than like attacked on
Actually,
if
it's actually
you
tacking
are
on like an
somebody
extra
there.
like phone number for depressed people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, have we gone into which one are we talking about now?
Can
Can
you hear
you
me?
hear
The one
me?
with the
Still,
immortals.
can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
So to recap, if anyone didn't get to rewatch it, there was Ryan's friend who is basically suffering from depression and didn't want to talk to anybody about it until the end of the episode. There was Yaz remembering the time that she ran away from home because she was being bullied, and she didn't want to talk about it until a police officer talked her out and basically bribed her into not running away. And then there was Graham being like, "Oh, I realized I actually am scared, and I need to talk to someone about my feelings, and I'll talk to the doctor." And those all
And the,
resolved like at the
oh
same
yeah, and the
time.
doctor gave the most underwhelming response,
This is the
which
point where I'm supposed to care, right? Yeah.
Well, it's
which
when
I absolutely hate.
I mean, it was definitely relatable in the sense where she's like, "I don't know what to say, and I'm sure if I putter around for a few minutes, I'm going to figure out what I should have said after it's already too late."
Yeah.
Which makes me
Yeah.
squirm.
Like that was very much I could read on her face that she's like, "Oh god, I need to say something, but I
I
don't have
do
any
think
idea what I'm going to
that
say."
that line far fit the Peter Capaldi doctor better than the Jodie Whittaker doctor by a mile.
Mm.
Because like when has she ever been like hesitant to say something reassuring?
Right, exactly. That's all you need to do. As someone who's experienced this with an actual loved one that has gone through that stuff,
Mhm.
yes, that's all you needed. And
Right.
the fact that the doctor can't even come up with
Yeah.
that is like.
Like as somebody who would in that situation, there's a very good chance I would be like, "Shit, I don't know what to say," and I would just stand there frozen like a deer in the headlights. I can relate to what she said, but at the same time, it felt out of character for this incarnation of the Doctor.
It
I
feels
do
out of
I
agree
place
think
with
for the
you.
doctor, period, to me, unless it's like
No,
maybe a
no,
more
I mean,
silly doctor.
I agree
the
with Phil.
doctor
I
that
could
needed
see
note cards
Capaldi.
about your friend / pet / family member would definitely have had this bad of a reaction.
Yeah, I could see it with Capaldi, because Capaldi was like the socially awkward doctor. At least for his first season.
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe like it's like a first season and the doctor's not all pieced together yet. I can see that,
But I would
but
say
not this state.
for Series 8 Capaldi, but not for Series 9 Rockstar Capaldi.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I remember in my head coming up with like potentially it was more his specific issue dealing with like because I don't know. Like, again, it doesn't necessarily hold up to scrutiny, but I think I remember my thing being like, the Doctor's understanding of life and death is so vastly different than a human's that talking about that kind of specific issue, it's like, this is such a human concept. How do I fucking what do I say to that could ever be reassuring? Um but yeah, like even if it was just a matter of I know you needed to get that out. You didn't really necessarily need anything encouraging, you just needed someone to actually listen uh to, the stuff you're going through. Um
Literally, like 15 or 16-year-old me had a better answer than what she gave. Which is, if you need anything, I'll be there for you. That's what I did.
hmm.
Anywho. Um,
Any other thoughts on this episode?
yeah, or anything else, or are we moving on?
I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
Oh, just the last thing. I'm not sure if we had remarked on this at the time, but I think this episode is the first time it hints toward Ryan leaving at the end of the season.
I'd say so, yeah. Because it's one of those things of checking in with their friends and realizing they
They were
need
missing
them.
out on stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And Ryan mentions with Yaz that he feels like he's missing out on his friend's life, whereas Yaz doesn't really feel that way or as strongly. So you definitely get the hint that Ryan has one path and Yaz has another.
Yeah, I'm missing my friend's life. What about you? You must be missing yours. I don't have any friends. Yeah. Why? Because I'm not a person.
I'm not a person. I'm not even fully developed by the writers. All I have is family, and I'm a cop.
That reminds me, is this is the same sister as the one from Spyfall, right? Or does Yaz have multiple sisters?
She only has one sister that I'm aware of.
Because it didn't feel like the same characterization here. Like, I don't know.
I mean, we do barely see them, so
yeah, but it's like in the other episode, she seems to be like outgo. Like she was like, "Oh, let me get Ryan's phone number," and then here she's just like, "Oh yeah, we're having this dinner, and we should do that, right?" And that's
I guess
really
it's more
she's
'cause
really
it's an
like a lot more
awkward
reserved.
Yeah, I think it's more because it's an awkward subject because it's related to the fact that she ran away. Sort of a thing. Because I don't think she's ever like that. Again, granted, I forget if we actually see her again after this episode.
I don't think so.
I do not think we do.
No, there's only 3 more episodes remaining, and we
Yaz's
definitely don't
family
see
is
her
not
family again.
important. Yaz's character is not important. She's
In
there as window dressing.
In Revolution of the Daleks, it seems she has no family or job outside of Ryan and Graham. Which we're not there yet, but
yeah.
Well,
that's right. The special after these.
Which is remarkable because in Spyfall, both her mom and her boss are just like, are you ever going to spend some time doing your
she
job?
has family and she's a cop.
And then she's actually on Earth for a few months, and as far as we can tell, she quit her job and
she quit her job and left her family. Yeah,
I have no idea.
She sat in the TARDIS or sat in the other TARDIS.
Yeah, she's just basically hoboing in the TARDIS.
We really, that's as far as we know. That's all that happened during those 6 months,
something like that.
Okay.
Well, on the plus side, she's got free internet.
I'm not sure if we figured out, is this next episode The Haunting of the Villa Diodati or Via Diodati?
Villa.
It is Villa. Okay.
Villa.
It really depends. It said American, it's Villa.
Right.
But it said in the language that's meant, it's probably Via. But that's, again, how you say it.
Hmm.
It'd be the Via Diodati. But, no, the way we say it would be Villa, because, yeah. America,
Okay.
fuck yeah!
English and stuff.
And of course, I still don't necessarily forgive this episode for making Mary's story officially like unable to be canon, at least reconciled with being part of the same timeline as the televised Doctor Who show. Obviously,
Again,
Big Finish had no idea this was going to be written at some point in the future when they wrote Mary's story.
again, get over it. Big Finish stuff is not necessarily canon.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Only certain segments of it is considered canon.
And
Yeah.
that's stuff that's been
What I'm saying is
cross-referenced.
they
in the
had a
TV show.
choice to make it or to make it not, and they made it not.
Hmm.
Yes, but you're blaming them for that.
Yes, because they made a choice. You can blame people for choices.
Is that the reason you gave this episode a 3.5?
It might have contributed. I would have to re-listen to the podcast.
Because I'm looking at this, and it's a 3.5 by you, a 4.5 by me, a 5 by Matt, a 5 by Tim, and a 4 by Thomas.
I don't know how much role that played, because I remember we talked about historical inaccuracies.
I'm not even sure how inaccurate it was.
3.5 does seem somewhat low, but I mean, I was also bothered by the fact that they even Mary kept referring to her husband by only his last name, and but that's a nitpick, and that would not have affected my score more than like 0.05 of a point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you hate this one so much. I still enjoy it, even though being tied to where things go, it does make me kind of.
I might have been on the fence between 3.5 and 4 at the time. I'm honestly not sure.
If I had the time, I would go back and re-listen, but
Right.
I do think you were overly harsh on this one.
But I could definitely see myself having taken half a point away from it for conflicting with previous stories.
Big Finish stories are not official. Get that through your cabeza.
As of Night of the Doctor, they are, so.
Only the ones he mentioned.
Frobisher's canon.
And
Bring back
technically,
Frobisher.
the actual stories are not canon. Only the fact that the Doctor traveled with those companions are.
Hmm.
Bring back Frobisher. That'll be a budget sink. For those that
Matt,
don't,
you don't live far enough away to protect yourself from me coming to kick you in the dick.
I mean,
for those that
to be
don't know,
honest-
Frobisher is a changeling.
if anybody is going to bring in a shape-shifting penguin for one or two stories, it's Russell T Davies.
Yes, please.
No,
Please,
he
Russell,
would do
please.
it for like a Christmas special. He
But-
would.
For Christmas, yes, perfect.
Or like a season finale.
You keep saying this, Matt, and you know I know what store you work at now.
You still gotta outrace me.
I have to see how.
You got to remember, I come in there, the customer is always right.
Not if I'm not there.
I have to just see if you wanted to kick me in the dick. How far would you have to drive?
I have.
Quite a ways.
You're in Ohio.
Yeah.
It's probably a good 12-hour drive. And a lot of it I'm going to hate, so I'll be in extra rage by the time I get there. Because I have to drive through central Illinois.
Oh, joy.
So I don't know your exact address, but it is. Why does it say 100? Oh, I think it's walking. I was like, it's not 171 hours. What is Google trying to tell me? It is okay. Yeah, it's about a 10-hour drive, depending on how big Madison actually is.
And the big pain is getting through the Chicago to Indiana border, unless I go down through
Okay.
Normal and up through Kentucky. But either way,
I was partially saying that because I know somewhere like Houston, just just where in Houston you are could add an extra hour to your drive.
Mm-hmm.
But that is tangenting in an unexpected way. So what other thoughts did we have on the haunting of the villa / Via Diodati?
I remember being fond of the episode because I liked the suspense, the build up. I did think some of the characterizations were a bit off, which is why it wasn't a perfect episode for me, and it then led into a very decent episode. Unfortunately, the third part of that trilogy was not the payoff I wanted.
Yeah, I remember Villa Diodati being one I really liked a lot. I liked the build-up and where they were going with things. The sad part is the third part, but the third part we'll keep for review of its own.
I definitely recall I not just recall, I watched it, but the atmosphere is definitely great. I think if anything, the part that was the bigger chunk when I took the score down is I'm still not necessarily sold on Percy Shelley being a time traveler and Lord Byron's manor being his specially designed trap to keep the Cybermen away from him. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, that was the weird portion.
It is a little odd. I'll grant you.
And of course, this episode introduced the lone Cyberman, aka the half converted dude. I forget if we ever gave him a more proper name.
Because he's always just the lone Cyberman. I don't think they ever refer to him as a cyber leader or anything.
He's not. He's half converted.
I mean, he is definitely in the following episode. It's clear he's in charge of the Cybermen, but then again, he has the Siberiad at that point.
Yeah. I mean, generally, it was an interesting way to get an emotive Cyberman for like the first time since the 80s.
Ashad is his name.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I was just beginning to wonder because I think I just found it too. Yeah.
In hindsight, that probably came up in this specific episode.
It might, because he talks about having been a father and whatever.
Because I don't think it comes up in Ascension and Timeless Children, I should say.
Yeah, it would have been something that comes up in Diodati before he's fully mentally converted back to being Cyberman and starts taking everything back to the future.
Yeah, he was never a cyber leader or anything. He was never fully converted. He was a reject.
Yeah.
But he was
a
fanatic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I'm sure other like extremist factions have had similar figures where he's not necessarily part of the main faction, but he's such a fanatic and so dedicated to the cause that he ends up becoming a leader of a splinter faction that becomes more powerful.
Adolf Hitler.
Okay.
I mean, he was not German, he was Austrian. He was basically rejected for most of the stuff he did. He barely qualified as a soldier. And then lost one of his testicles in an accident. And yet he became the speaker and leader of this party. And again, he's a horrible monster, but again, you see the fanatic rising to the leadership position just out of pure zealousness.
Hmm.
And the same can be said for a lot of fanatical um, cults or regimes. They usually are a
Hmm.
cult of personality centered on one person.
Right.
Hmm.
Only has one ball. Anyway, I assume we're done with Diodati.
Yep. Are we anything else with that? I did think this was pretty well acted. I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
the particularly the actor who played Mary. I think was pretty compelling.
Hmm.
I'm interested in the doctor's rule about not snogging Byron because if anybody would, I could see the Doctor in general doing it. Although I don't think the 13th Doctor has snogged anyone.
That would have actually been
No.
interesting to
Yeah.
have that David Tennant moment backwards.
Yes, especially I think that's right. It was some Facebook page was sharing memes about, or that's right. I think they were sharing like quotes from the actors about the Doctor snogging Madame de Pompadour, and I think that that was on my mind when I was rewatching this.
I'm the Doctor, and I snogged Lord Byron. Yeah,
Yes.
I could see it.
And with that, Ascension of the Cybermen, which we did not rate because we decided it was a two-parter.
Which it was.
Which it technically was, but this
Yeah.
if this part was to be on its own, it would be a pretty high praise.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I forget if that's what the production codes agreed with. Yes, so Diodati is considered a separate story, with the other being a two-parter.
It's a lead-in story,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's much in the way Utopia's the lead-in to
Mhm.
the two-part finale.
Utopia, I think, has the same production code as the other two parts.
Which is weird because it does feel like it's more of a lead-in than it is, but yeah.
So
Anyway,
I guess functional. I guess this is more of a turn left situation.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is very much a turn left before the final two-parter.
anyway,
Any other thoughts on
so
Ascension?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, we loved the new Cyberman design.
oh yeah, the
Mhm.
new
Yeah,
Cybermen
yeah.
design was awesome. The
Hmm.
threat of the Cybermen seemed very palpable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember enjoying this episode before the final episode came out so much that I actually made my own version of the retro Cyberman song to clips of this episode.
Yeah. It's interesting that Doctor Who loves to skirt around the edges of the Cyber Wars, but never actually delve into
involved.
the middle of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't think we ever actually see a glitter gun.
We never, yeah, outside of the Fourth Doctor era, yeah, we never see a glitter gun.
Yeah, there might have been one in Revenge, but that's
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a couple of them in Revenge.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, just watching them try to defend the refugees and just the Cybermen just getting around every defense they had.
Mm-hmm. The flying heads are still an interesting decision. I think they removed some of the gravitas from the moment. I don't know if that's intended or not.
Yeah, it did. Those did feel kind of what the fucky. I think
I
they could have
mean,
done that without the flying heads.
yeah.
I
I mean, I guess
just think about flying cybermats.
Yep.
If they had done flying cybermats, that would have been so much cooler and so much scarier.
Yeah, they basically be like the basically like cyber cockroaches.
Yes.
And
Or
that's threatening in
cyber
of itself.
locusts. Yeah.
Have the Cybermats actually come back in New Who yet?
A couple
They've
times.
been a couple times, yes.
There was in closing time there was Cybermats, and in there were the Cyber Mites, and I think it was the Missy story, if I'm not mistaken. Or either that or Nightmare in Silver.
But closing time was the really big one with cybermats.
Yeah.
They were really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
And I guess it'd probably be more fitting of a drone shape than a Cyberman head.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, something more along the lines of Cybermats or a flying variant thereof would have made a little more sense than a goofy Cyberman head flying about.
How did we feel about the supporting cast and Ascension of the Cybermen?
I thought most of them did
Mm.
okay.
Most of them did pretty good,
Hmm.
yeah.
I mean, there's only a handful that actually like live
Right.
through to the next story. Um, I mean, I do like the idea that it's a bunch of people that like, rather than making a bunch of soldiers look useless, it's just a bunch of people who aren't trained anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's fair. That's fair.
they're all actively like that one guy even says like, I'm a teacher, she was a nurse. You know,
Right.
we're
I,
just trying to escape this shit.
I do think they went a little far with the these are the last humans thing, that just because we've encountered so many groups of last humans and future
Yeah.
humans that it doesn't really ring true.
Yeah.
Well,
It kind of
I
stretches
forget
credibility.
I forget if they give like, I feel like the Doctor gives like a bit of a qualifier of like, these are the last humans in like this section of the universe or
Oh, she might have,
something.
because actually, she might have.
Yeah, rather than
Um,
it being like necessarily the
mhm.
last ever,
Like
more like
even
these are probably the last in
even
this.
even if they said
specific.
like they were the last handful of survivors from Earth, but there
Mm,
were there were other humans just outside of the Cybermen's reach would make sense. But when
yeah.
they would refer to themselves as the last humans, I was like, but we
Eh,
know that
Wrong.
humanity survives, so you're kind of not really
Mm-hmm.
feeling it.
Yeah. Of course, this episode and the whole boundary thing did remind me, and where like the boundary leads to,
The
did
Stargate.
rem- did remind me that I had a theory going into this, or going into like the last episode, that I thought that where it was possibly going to go was that the last humans would be the first Time Lords or something, or like
That would
would
have
be
made
some
things even
weird
worse.
random twist.
Would that have been
Oh
better?
yeah, I didn't necessarily say it was a good
Would,
twist, but it was
would that have
like,
been? But would that have been better or worse than who they decided was the actual first Time Lord? And we might as
mm,
well just bring into the Timeless Children at this point.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because, you know, I feel like whatever disappointment and annoyance I had of this didn't affect me as much on this viewing of these episodes. I was just kind of letting them go, and the acting carries it enough that I was like, yeah, it bugs me, but again, it's one of those things of like, and I would have said it when we initially covered it, but the timeless child thing is just the end point of, or the climax or whatever, of stuff that's been happening more and more in New Who anyway, where the
Mhm.
importance of the Doctor in the universe has just grown as the show keeps going, and it's like, so it's not even like a Chibnall specific issue, it's just an issue with like the show in New Who, that it's like we've gone from old Who, where the Doctor was just some random hobo traveling the universe, to, and like helping people, and it made sense if the Doctor had a reputation in certain places. But you know, then we
Mhm.
get to the whole like, you know, the oncoming storm and all that bullshit, and I'm just like, oh, fuck
Right. Yeah.
off.
We went from the Cartmel master plan to RTD kind of amping that up to 11,
Hmm.
um, to the Pandorica opens, which was supposed to take that away. But Moffat
Yeah.
was very wishy-washy, and every time he nerfed the Doctor, he
Mm,
would unnerf him like a few episodes later.
yeah. It's just like, again, like, and I think the funny thing, that the main reason it was so disappointing at first was because it looked like Chibnall was going to be scaling the importance down for the Doctor, and then nope, it ramped way back up. So it's like, oh well. Um Yeah, and like it's kind of funny because it seems like one of those things that was supposed to double as um giving more mystery to the Doctor, but also, you know, also explain certain things as well. I mean, again, like the funny thing is the Timeless Child being the Master would make so much more sense because the Master has come back from certain death how many times? Like it would make so much more sense for it to be the Master because that would be the only explanation you would ever need moving forward is how the Master keeps coming back. um but
And the
yeah, it's
Master
one of
keeps coming back because he's a pulp villain. Like,
the
I'm sure the Joker has come back from just as unbelievable situations, and he can't even regenerate.
yeah.
The Joker's removed his own
Um,
face.
like it's one of those things that like would I have wished it hadn't happened? Yes, but at the same time, like the way the show is going, something to this effect, not necessarily this exact thing, but something to this effect was kind of inevitable. The way the show was going.
So, having
Um,
mentioned the Timeless Children seems to have either broken Rand's internet or his Discord, and I'm waiting to see if he
mm,
comes back.
Oh, he actually left?
yeah,
I didn't even
He's
hear.
not on. He's
yeah,
not
it
on
like
Discord currently.
yeah.
Well, let me ramble for him if you don't mind.
Sure.
Holy bloody fucking bullshit continuity rooting garbage is this? Um,
Don't hold
the,
back now.
for the entirety of the Timeless Children, like the whole idea of the Timeless Child is a horrible bad idea. I wouldn't even put it on the Master. Just don't. Just you know what? Just keep it a secret. Keep it a rumor. Keep it whatever we know because that's better than trying to explain and failing at it. This is literally Highlander 2. Um, the fact that we
Even
shoehorned
to the
in a
point of the Doctor being an alien from another planet, and by which I mean not Gallifrey.
yeah, well, that's
Mm,
already one issue right off the bat. The fact that there's like hundreds and hundreds of previous Doctors, all of them that were murdered by their adoptive mother. Oh boy, what a grand tale we're telling here.
I mean, the Time Lords have never exactly been great people, so no real surprise.
But then also to undermine like literally anything about the Time Lords and also any continuity about regeneration in its entirety in one
mm,
shot. Literally nothing like how we ended a season with the 11th Doctor shouldn't even exist according to this continuity.
True.
mm,
It's undermining literally New Who itself, much less anything in Classic Who. It's undermining
yeah.
everything,
So,
and
I
it's
do have
hot garbage.
I have to ask. We talked about how they could have fixed Fugitive of the Jadoon. If they had fixed it to the point where you can look at the Ruth Doctor and be like, I could honestly believe, due to things that other decisions that they might have made differently, I could look at the Ruth Doctor and say, I believe this is a pre-Hartnell Doctor. If they had fixed that, would you feel differently about the Timeless Children, or would you hate it just as much?
Believe Ruth to be a pre-Hartnell Doctor?
Like if they had fixed it so it wasn't a police box, it
If they
wasn't
had
like
fixed it, if it
all of
wasn't a
that.
place box, and like maybe this is a possible future or alternate Doctor, I'd be completely fine with it. I would
Like
be
with the
completely
Timeless
fine with
Children
her.
still. Like I
But
mean, yeah.
um, I'd be fine with her if she was like an alternate universe Doctor, or if she was like, again, some other Doctor like to be coming forward still.
But
I
what I mean is if they had made it so that they fixed all the continuity errors we mentioned so that the Ruth Doctor is you could understand, okay, maybe the Ruth Doctor actually did come before Hartnell and the Doctor's memory was wiped. And it was no longer a police and it was all of that. It was an older TARDIS, etc. Would that change your opinion on the Timeless Children, or would you hate all of the reveals in that just as much even if they fixed that.
Even if they fixed that episode but didn't fix Timeless Children,
Right.
I would still really hate Timeless Children. Because it's still undermining so much of the franchise. Timeless Children is literally undermining a lot of continuity, even its own continuity at times.
Which is funny because I've seen people say that like continuity is a thing that shouldn't matter too much in Doctor Who, and for me,
And then
it's
why
like,
should we care about the show then? Bye.
well, yeah,
That's
like
I
to
think that's
me,
something Moffat especially said. He was
yeah, like to me, it's more like the one constant should be the Doctor as far as like continuity about how they work goes.
But they just undermined it.
Whereas like Doctor Who continuity is a bit shaky anyway, because I mean, like between the second and third Doctor, we had like 3 different versions of Atlantis. So that kind of wishy-washy time travel shit being wonky continuity wise, that's fine. But like actual like how the Time Lords work and all
Yeah,
that,
and also honestly, I can forgive a
I
few accidental
prefer
mistakes,
to have
especially with a thing like
something like that.
Atlantis with old Who. But it's not undermining literally characters who have been with us since the beginning.
Mm.
It's a couple of one-off stories that kind of conflict with one another, and you can still make excuses for them occasionally.
Like I still, it still would have just been an interesting idea for me if Ruth had been essentially a season 6B Doctor, because that would have made the police box make sense. It would have made the fact that she had no memory of Jodie make sense. Well, I mean, whatever there. But like Jodie having no memory of her, because of course, the idea is that the Doctor's doing shit for them in between being forced to regenerate.
And to be
And all
fair, the
that.
Doctor probably would sooner forget as well, in some cases.
Yeah. So I could see like, the having it as the idea of like Troughton, Joe Martin, Pertwee, it makes a hell of a lot more sense, because that's a shaky thing, because we never actually see the regeneration happen. We see the start of it, but then we just see Pertwee tumble out of the TARDIS. We don't actually see. So there is a lot of room, and there's been fan stuff anyway, where there's been like an in-between Doctor.
Yep.
So there's room there where it's like, if you were going to do another mystery Doctor, that makes the most sense. And it would make sense that like after they're done, they'd be like, okay, cool, wiping your memory of that whole experience, off you go.
Yeah. Yeah, but the way they've done it in this particular season, just no. This
Yeah, it will.
undermines itself sometimes. It undermines previous seasons not that long ago. It literally undermines an entire major event with the 11th Doctor before he became the 12th.
It is also funny though that the one out they have, if RTD wants to, or even again like Chibnall before he leaves, undo or tweak or whatever this is the Master who said all this.
This is the Master who said all this, and this is also in the what's it called again?
The Matrix.
The Matrix.
Yeah. So
which the Master is a master of.
Yeah, the Master has basically corrupted an entire segment of the Matrix and warped it, so he could tell whatever lie he wanted to very easily in there and make people believe it
so
to some degree.
To me, that even seems like a deliberate choice, that he made the Master be the one to reveal this. So it could
that's you
be
giving
like
him a lot of
want
headway
to.
on that.
Well,
I'm
no.
sitting here
I'm
going,
just saying, like, he's like, well, if anyone after me wants to undo this, here's a potential out, that it's the Master saying all this shit.
I feel that's a little bit just accidental. I don't even think he remembers that much.
Yeah. But either way, like, it is funny because by virtue of how it was done, it's an easy out by virtue of being the Master. And
for people who
the
know how to
interesting
do it,
thing
yes.
is, we still don't know what the fate of Rassilon is, because Rassilon's still out there somewhere, I would assume, because
Right.
he was kicked off the planet. So the
Mhm.
idea is that's not necessarily even all of the Time Lords gone, because some might have gone with him.
I'm still really
Um,
hoping that we're going to come across a faction of Time Lords evacuated by either Romana or Rassilon or Susan or someone with a connection
Yeah.
to the Doctor.
I mean, I would
And they're
After
hope
not
this
all
that.
story.
scumbags.
Yeah.
Especially since we have the season of 3 specials, that would be a really
Hmm.
good time to follow up on Gallifrey and
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
Well,
necessarily like reset it because that's boring, but
yeah.
put it on a believable track instead of
Yeah.
just the species is wiped out again.
Yeah. And honestly, I much prefer the Doctor with the Time Lords existing. I mean, I don't like the Doctor basically being able to walk in like Capaldi does in Hellbent and just be like, "Yep, I'm in charge," because that's
I
very boring.
I like the
Um,
Time Lords as not necessarily enemies of the Doctor, but
yeah,
you know, maybe
antagonistic.
maybe political enemies.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
have some goals in common, but they definitely don't see eye to eye.
yeah. It's like antagonistic without necessarily being
Mm.
outright villains.
Maybe some people, yeah,
And
maybe some people of the Time Lords don't completely see eye to eye with the Doctor, but he has his uh, ins and outs with them, and there are definitely ones that do trust him to actually do the right thing,
like generally, I also just
especially at this
generally like the
point.
idea of Time Lords existing that are better than the Doctor. Because it's like that's always like a running gag in Old Who is that he was like essentially the equivalent of a high school dropout compared to a lot of these
Well,
people.
you could say that, or you could see it as the Doctor is Prince. He does things pretty much on his own. There's usually no other
Mm,
Time Lord with him. He writes his own music. He performs it. He sings it. Gallifrey
mm.
is the Jackson Five. He has they have this whole team behind them to back
Yeah.
them up and make them look special.
Mm,
Did you say Prince?
yeah.
Because that was Michael you were talking about.
I said Prince versus the Jackson. So
Oh,
Prince was pretty much a one man act,
yeah.
whereas the Jackson Five had a whole lot more and more people involved in the work. And I believe Michael Jackson as well also had just I don't know. I don't think did he. I mean, I don't know anything about that type of music. For all I know, he did play guitar or something. So I'm not going
Michael,
to
as
put my
far as
foot
I'm
in my
aware,
mouth.
I don't know if he ever actually specialized in any instruments. I just know he was a
Right.
good singer, and that's what he needed.
Yeah. As far as I knew, he
Yeah,
sang
yeah.
and danced. So I don't know.
Hmm.
I think he had other people doing music for him,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong, and I don't want to put my
Yeah.
foot in my
Whereas
mouth.
Prince was definitely a guitar player
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Prince. I know one of the
as
things
well as singing.
that Prince is known for is he did everything by himself, which has its benefits.
Everything?
I
That's
feel
how
like
I've
he
seen him
had
referred to.
I
No,
feel
he's
like he
had
had
like backup
producers to start
singers,
with.
keyboardists, and other people, but
Mm,
Okay,
he definitely heavily
yeah.
coached people to play the music the way he
Yeah.
wanted to
but
hear it
but
played.
you
Mm,
but you get the metaphor I'm
But yeah.
trying to make.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So at this point, I'm thinking Randy's internet might have shit the bed completely
That might
because
be a possibility.
he's
Yeah.
not back yet.
But yeah,
Mm.
just to very quickly summarize his feelings on Timeless Children again. Absolutely hate it. I think it undermines a lot of important stuff with the series. And any other final thoughts?
I think between
Um,
this and the actual review, we've covered most of everything.
yeah. Like it's almost funny cuz like I enjoy Joe Martin so much that it
Yeah,
is
it
almost kind of
undermines Joe's character
annoying.
too.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is kind of annoying that she's kind of stuck at the moment as being a past doctor, because I would much have preferred that there's some fuckery going on to where she was actually the next or just generally a future
Mm.
Yeah, I
incarnation.
would much prefer a possible
Um
future incarnation or just a alternate
mm.
dimensional
'Cause,
version,
like, it was funny because like
just to play it safe, if
I
nothing
know a lot
else.
of people. I know a lot of who don't necessarily hate Jodie's performance, but were like in Fugitive of the Jadoon were saying that it's like, wow, can we have this doctor, please?
Mm.
um,
Well, yeah, they wrote
Oh.
her better.
One thing, like I said, you want to say is I think all of the Brandon scenes, I really don't think they add anything to this episode. I get they're supposed to be like, oh, this is a symbol of what actually happened, but it's modified. But that makes even less sense. It doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't really add anything to the story.
I actually kind of feel like those would have been better served as random cold opens to other episodes.
I could see that.
And like the last one is the cold open to this, and then like you get because like that way it's like spread over the whole thing rather than taking up like a good portion of this.
Right.
And giving more time for this to actually breathe.
I would probably be more okay with that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, is that it for
Revolution of the Daleks is the last episode for us to talk about. I did not at all have time to rewatch this, but it's also the freshest memory since it's less than a year old.
I mean, you know, for all we've said about Chibnall, I will fucking hug him if I ever meet him for letting companions leave the fucking TARDIS on their own. Jesus Christ. I fucking hated. And like the more old who I watch, the more I'm like, can we actually have some people leave for a fucking change? Like, yes, and again, that's the other difference as well. Graham and Ryan just decide that they're done traveling. It's not like Martha where it's like, well, I'm basically, what am I, a wet blanket? Like, what the fuck? Like, I guess you're not into me, so I'm going to leave. And Mickey is like, well, I'm a third wheel, so fuck this shit. Like, this, it's actually just like, yeah, I think we're done traveling.
Yeah, this is basically like Sarah Jane leaving. She just up and decided she's homesick and decides it's time to head back.
Yeah. I mean, like, she's kind of
well, at the same time, the doctor's been
talked
to by the Time Lords and he can't bring her, but at the same time, she was kind of thinking she wanted to go home anyway.
Yeah. And it's almost a matter of like, oh, this is very sudden, but okay. But like, you know, it's like there's so many instances. In fact, there's honestly very few instances, I think, in Old Who where a companion is forced off. There is Jamie and Zoe.
They're forced off by the Time Lords.
Adric is killed. Like one of the companions is killed.
Susan is left behind forcibly by the Doctor because he realizes that she wants to kind of stay, and she's too nervous to say so.
Yeah.
Sarah Jane is kind of kicked off by the Doctor and not picked back up.
Kind of kicked off, but she also kind of wanted to leave. Like, so it's a mixture.
She wanted to leave, but it's just a matter of like she's also a bit reluctant because she's like, oh, this is a bit sudden. But yeah, it's like
Tegan leaves twice.
Yeah.
Ari has her whole complicated situation.
A couple of the other girls during the first and second Doctor kind of leave out of their own volition.
Yeah.
For various reasons.
I mean, I think it was just saying that there's such a short list of ones that actually leave for anything other than their own choice. That the majority leave of their own choice.
Because it's pretty much just Jamie and Zoe get forced off. A first Doctor companion gets shot or just generally killed. Arguably, if you count Sarah Kingdom, she dies as well. And Adric, and that's basically it. Everyone else like willingly leaves
for various reasons. Yeah.
Whether it's staying behind where they were or just like with like the closest I think I think Tegan's the only one where it's like short of like Donna not staying on after her first appearance is this isn't fun anymore sort of a thing. And I think this is the first instance of I actually kind of liked the life I had before, so while this has been fun, I'm going to prioritize that life now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They're apparently going to be kind of showing up like maybe cameo-ish. And hey, that's the
What I would
beautiful thing.
expect.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of actually letting them leave willingly.
They-
Is if
Yeah.
the actors are willing to
they-
come back, you can bring them back.
They
And you can
stop
work
by
around their
Earth.
schedules.
They stop by Earth in a future episode, and Ryan is like with Yaz's sister, like in the middle of the kitchen. Like, Ryan, what are you doing in my home? Snogging your sister. So now that we've talked about the end of the episode, how about the beginning? I know Rand does not like the fact of the Doctor staying in prison for that long.
Yeah, I don't know
Because
why
the
the Doctor would
normally
willingly do
would have
that.
definitely come up with a plan. So the way I see it's a little different. I tend to see it as that basically this was less being unable to escape and more I'm coping with, basically I just went through emotional trauma and I'm using this alone time as a way to process that on my own before I go back to my friends.
Except that's not
Yeah.
really the way they show it in the episode, though. At least that doesn't seem to be how they are using it. It really does seem
Well, I
like
mean,
she's trying to hide away at the moment.
hide away is kind of basically the same thing. It's basically she's saying, that she just had this huge bombshell dropped on her. She's not operating at 100%, and her focus is not on getting back out into the universe. It's being in her own head.
Especially because she knows that once she does get out, she can try to get back to where it's like she never left, sort of a thing. Not that works out, but yeah.
Even though after like 4,000 years, she still can't pilot the TARDIS. Or the TARDIS
honestly
refuses to be piloted.
Which
Which is
honestly
kind of more
do
the case
like
here, because the TARDIS is like, yeah, you're not coming back until the Dalek problem happens.
And honestly, that's what's like the good thing is because that is like a running element through the episode of like in her absence, they are just thinking about different shit and what they want to prioritize now. Whereas it's made very clear that Yaz is absolutely not done with this.
Right.
And honestly, if Yaz isn't killed off, which I hope not, because I would like to have at least a few strings in a row. Well, I'll put it this way. Either she has to leave willingly as well, but she's less likely to. So I honestly think the Doctor is going to nudge her off, if anything, if she actually survives. So if forced off in like pushed off the TARDIS rather than killed. But I could also see her being killed. But if she is killed, then she needs to like perma dead. None of this fucking cop out shit.
Yeah.
That the Moffat era did a lot of, where it's like dead but not really.
The
But
least
kinda
abrupt
not.
ending I see for her is if it's one of those situations where the Doctor's regenerating and like leaves her behind in order to like one of those situations where the TARDIS is out of control, the Doctor's in the process of dying, and is therefore like, yeah, if you stay with me, you're gonna crash into the sun. So I'm leaving you behind while I go regenerate, sort of deal.
Yeah.
Like that's the least abrupt end I see.
Yeah.
Because the longer she stays on the TARDIS, the less likely she seems to do anything else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If she does leave at the end of this, I guess you could even just call it a serial that we're getting for series 13. I'm going to put out a theory now that she might leave with the guy who played Grey Worm. It's like, well, the Doctor doesn't want me to travel anymore with them.
So kind of pull
and Mel.
Was it Mel? Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
Mel and Glitz.
Like, I could honestly see that. That would honestly be an interesting thing to happen. It's like she does not. It's at this point it's made very clear Yaz has no fucks to give about Earth because she just wants to keep traveling to the point that I could see her being like, hey, this guy wants to take me with him traveling, so fuck it, I'll just go with him if you're not interested in having me anymore. Like a nice way to keep her out there, but also have a companion in Modern Who leave in space.
That said, I really, and I mean, maybe that still be the case with the new companion. I do really wish we would see a continuation of a season of companions stay over across showrunners, because we did the closest we ever had. Clara stayed over from Doctor to Doctor, and Rose stayed over from Doctor to Doctor, but never across showrunners.
Yeah.
So often the Doctor and companions leave at the same time, and they don't have
It seems
that
a little too over coincidental at this point.
Whereas in classic Who, it happened all the time that you would have more often than not, the companion would stay on past the regeneration. Even or they would switch out a few stories before the regeneration, like Perry. Perry at least had 2 episodes with 5 before 6 came around, etc.
Yeah, like I think as well as just treated differently because like at least with some showrunners the idea like I think that's just it. Part of the reason I think that like the transition from 2 to 3 didn't carry companions over was partly just because they didn't think the show was going to get picked up again necessarily. So the idea was to give it a clean slate, just in case. Like this might be the last one anyway, so oh well. And then yeah, you get new setup, new everything. Even though like season 7 was like dictated to start with the guy that oh wow, no, I'm blanking on his name. God, I just keep thinking of Terrence Dix. That was the script editor. Barry Letts, that's it. Like Barry Letts took over, and that was the same thing that he did to Hinchcliffe. Like he was still showrunner for like Tom Baker's first serial at the very least. But like there was still a lot of stuff that had been worked out prior to Hinchcliffe taking over, so it isn't really like until Hinchcliffe's second season that he really got to.
We seem to be going on more and more tangents, and we're past the 2-hour mark.
So yeah, we should wrap this up.
Do we have anything else we want to say about Revolution of the Daleks?
Well, I don't think it was great by any stretch. I still give it a lot of credit for letting companions leave, and just I remember thinking it was a good story. Probably, I would argue that it is probably the best, like, for Doctor Who, the main show thing that Chibnall has written.
Quite possibly. That's that,
again,
but then again, that's not very
like,
high praise considering how low his bar is.
Right.
But also, I will say this is probably the most threatening the Daleks have been in a while, outside of their cases.
Yeah.
Because they started off as being horrific, at least in appearance, but they never were dangerous, air quotes. But this is like, ooh, yeah, that's what I expect out of these little lumps of hate. They're also absolutely vicious and nasty and deadly, even outside of their casings.
Right, which of course carries over from Resolution, but I think it does so in a very good way.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it for season 12.
Yep. So the last thing was our based just on our collective ratings. The number 1 episode in series 12 was The Haunting of the Villa Diodati with 4.4. Then Revolution of the Daleks with 4.38 was number 2. Number 3 was Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, 4.2. What did I just say? That was number 3?
That was number 3.
Yeah. Number 3. Number 4, Can You Hear Me with 4.1. Number 5, Spyfall with 4.0. Then we dropped... Oh, no. Then Praxeus with 3.8 was number 6. Fugitive of the Judoon was number 7 with 3.5. Ascension of the Cybermen, The Timeless Children was number 8 with 3.3. And then Orphan 55 with 3.0 was the bottom.
Yeah, those were pretty bad.
That sounds fair to everyone who's still here?
I would say that my score would still be lower, but that's the average. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was saying more the order at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
All right. So that is the end to this season of an Unearthly podcast. We're taking next week off to rest up and make our usual changes and get ready for a new season and a new series. Join us in 2 weeks as we review Flux episode 1, or maybe it'll have a different name by then. Written
knows?
by Chris Chibnall and starring Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, Mandip Gill as Yaz, and introducing John Bishop as Dan Lewis. Don't forget to make sure you subscribe on YouTube, ring the bell for notifications, and follow us on Twitch so that you get our Series 13 reviews as they come out every week.
All right. See you all next time.
See you all in 2 weeks.